You're listening to Bigfoot Society, and I'm Jeremiah Byron. Tonight's account doesn't come from deep in the wilderness. It comes from the edge of town, from backyards, bedroom doorways, and the forgotten corners of Appalachia. This isn't a hunter's tale. It's from a man named Kevin, who's been seeing strange things his whole life. A shadowy figure glowing like static, and 3 watchers at the foot of his bed, and a Sasquatch not deep in the forest, but hiding behind a tree just miles from I-95. From West Virginia to Delaware, the encounters followed him, and through trauma, healing, and time, they never really stopped. This isn't just a Bigfoot sighting, it's a lifetime of being watched. So this is the story of Kevin and the Sasquatch in the suburbs. So stay with us. All right, Bigfoot Society, we've got the privilege of talking to Kevin today. Kevin is an individual who got introduced to each other in the YouTube comments, where a lot of really great accounts come from, if people wanted to know. But he's got a few really interesting things that have happened over the years, including a state that we don't hear a lot from. So I'm excited to hear from Kevin today. Welcome to the show. How's it going, man?
All right. Pretty good. Thank you.
Absolutely. You know, Kevin, I want to make sure that you have all the time that you need to share what you've had happen, because we are going to be talking about multiple things occurring today. So I'm going to go ahead and pass things over to you, and feel free to take us back to when you first started having these interactions in your past.
Fair enough. Start by saying, none of them are the intense, exciting kind of encounters where something chased me or anything like that. They're all just pretty much weird, seeing something really weird. So I guess I'll jump right in. The first one would be, I think I was relatively like 8, 9, something like that. I lived back in Wheeling, West Virginia, Warwood, actually. My grandparents, I was staying over at their house, and their house, like, when you come in the front door, you look straight ahead. If you keep walking straight, you'll go right out the back door. But like, just to kind of paint the picture, the living room's off to the side, and if you cross the hall, it goes up the steps to the bedroom. And I said goodnight to my grandparents in the living room, turned around, and was walking across, like, it's like 2 steps through the hall before you get to the actual stairs. And as I did it, I mean, it was just, that feeling you get where you're like, something's looking at me. So I looked over to my left, down through the kitchen, and right up at the back door. Like, it's the kind of door, it's like a big wooden door with a window pane at the top part, and the rest of it's all wood around the bottom. But so about 3 feet maybe off the ground, something like that, there were these 3 little heads peeking in, like, just staring at me, and it looked like they were smiling or laughing, and it really creeped me out. And I just kind of looked over, saw them, and just kind of put my head down and scurried up the steps, and completely forgot about that until about 8, 7 years ago, something like that. My mom reminded me of it. But yeah, it's really weird. The best way I could explain it is they were, like I said, about maybe 3, 4 feet tall. And they had haircuts or whatever, reminiscent of like the bowl cut that you kind of see on like the Aztec Mayan, I guess, groups. So like dark hair, and just like kind of bowl cuts or whatever you want, like kind of like Mo from the Three Stooges. All 3 of them. And they were all about the same height and just staring in at me. And like I said, I couldn't tell if they were smiling or laughing. And, as a little kid, I was just kind of freaked out and went right up the steps and went to bed. Didn't feel afraid or anything. That's kind of a reoccurring theme through a couple of these encounters, or whatever you want to call them. But yeah, for the life of me, I could not tell you what they were. They weren't other kids. The area we lived in, we lived in Warwood, it's like kind of like a city, the way like inner city blocks are. with like an alley behind it, but our alley backed up to the tennis courts, not other houses. And they had like their own yard, fenced in, garage and patio on the other, or driveway on the other side of it. So there was nobody, especially at that time of night, coming into the yard. And I had asked my grandparents, were my cousins over last night with a friend or something? And they're like, no, they're at their mom's. And well, ironically, they were in Dover, Delaware at the time, which is where I live now, but not Dover, but Delaware. But yeah, so there was really nobody else in our family or as my friends or anybody, like other little kids, who would fit that height that would have been coming up to the back door, staring in like that. And, like I said, it's not like an exciting encounter, but it's weird. And I still don't know what it is. And when you couple it with the other things that go on throughout my life, it kind of fits the bill for that. So I don't know who they were, or what they were. There's no reason to think that they were any other person we would know. There's no other reason for anybody to be there. But yeah, that's about it for the first one. Kind of, anticlimactic there. But, but yeah, definitely weird, definitely creepy, freaked me out. And yeah, that was kind of it for that one. And the one now, I guess in between that one and the one here in Delaware, throughout my entire life, I've had, like night terrors and stuff where you wake up screaming, really weird ones that don't make much sense, but regardless, you wake up terrified. But something else I've dealt with a lot is the whole sleep paralysis thing. And it's not just the sleep paralysis where like you can't move, but it's like you wake up and you're kind of awake, and like it's like you're squinting your eyes, like you can barely see out of your eyes at all, but you can see enough to recognize your room or wherever you're sleeping. And I mean, it's happened dozens of times. I never counted. And it's happened all over the place. It happened in West Virginia, Delaware. It happened in Florida once. I mean, you name it, any place I've been, it's pretty much happened multiple times. The weirdest part of that is it's not just the sleep paralysis. There are always three, like kind of grayish, dark kind of beings, entities, I guess. I don't know what you want to call them. I'm sure, like at the best I can explain it, a lot of people might say, "Oh, they're gray aliens," but I don't know what they are. But they were always there, either at the side of my bed or the foot of my bed, and it's terrifying. I mean, it's something that I wouldn't wish on any kid, especially. But over time, I learned to kind of breathe my way out of the sleep paralysis. Like, it's hard to do, especially when you're in that moment, especially when you're younger. But eventually I figured out that, okay, I'm freaking out, but I got to calm down and just start kind of controlling my breathing, and it'll go away. And when it goes away, I wake up and nothing's there. Now I'm still kind of freaked out, but there's nothing around my room. Everything's how it was. Nobody came in. It wasn't like my friends or family or anybody messing with me. It was just these three things that would always be there, like they're watching me while I'm sleeping. And again, here we are. And so that's another one. Like, there's three of those. There was three of the things at the back door at my grandparents. So I that's what I wonder about a lot, is like little connections like that. Um, I'm sure I'll think of something else to add in as we're going, but that's something that's happened throughout my entire life. I will say, and this connects to what we mentioned a little bit ago, trauma, abuse, everything that falls under that category pretty much. I've always been wondering if whatever any of these things are, not just what I've seen, but you want to talk about Sasquatch, Dogman, any of it. I listen to a lot of this stuff. like your show, especially, several others. I don't know if I should name them or not, but
You can name them.
so
I don't care. I'm not one of those
okay,
shows. Go ahead.
okay, cool. Well, that's awesome because it's all a big family, in my
That's right.
opinion. Um, Sasquatch Chronicles, How to Hunt. Um, I just forgot to. Monstrous with Robert Prevost. There's a couple of other ones, but those ones and yours are the bulk of what I listen to. I kind of bounce back and forth and obsess with this one and then obsess with that one. um, but throughout all of them, you always end up at not all of them, but there's always some kind of, you always run into somewhere along the way, whether it's some kind of like alcoholism, addiction, sexual abuse, physical, domestic, there's always some kind of trauma. And well, not always, but when there is a trauma, it always seems that these things show up. And again, no matter which one of them it is, any of these entities or cryptids or whatever we want to refer to them as, I always wonder if, do they, this might sound silly, but do they just feel safer revealing themselves to us? Maybe because they think nobody will believe us because we're this or that. Or if because of the trauma, if we are in some way, shape, or form more open mentally in a way, or emotionally, or spiritually, maybe, I don't know. But I've always wondered, like, is there something about people who kind of suffer these things or deal with these things that makes them more susceptible to these beings showing up in their lives? And that's honestly the one connection I can make with myself is, I'm not boo-hooing or whining, but I'm just stating a fact. I've been through a lot of crap. No matter what you want to say, like call it, it's been a part of my life since I was a little kid. Um, and that makes me wonder if like, do they show up because of that, or does that lure them in, or does it happen because of them? It could be any of that stuff. I have no idea. But so, yeah, I'm just kind of throwing that out there. That's something I've always wanted to ask, and I've always said if I ever make it on one of these shows, I'm going to mention that because I want to hear back. I want feedback in the comments. I want to hear, like, what do you people think? Does anybody else, well, especially does anybody else, have anybody seen these things or dealt with stuff like this? I want to know what these things are. But I also want to know, like, how many people that have ended up seeing these things. I mean, yeah, you got your hunters who are out there in the woods or any like tough stuff like that. But for me, my stuff has never been in the woods. The one of my grandparents, like, we're nestled right between the Ohio River and like foothills of the Appalachians, but it's on the outskirts of Wheeling, a city. So it's not like we're up in the hills. It's a relatively populated area. And well, the other one,
Kevin,
yeah,
I will jump in response to your question there from this side.
please do.
I mean, I can tell you, dude, the amount of interviews I'm thinking of right now where the witness says something to the effect of, I just went through a divorce, or I just lost a close family member, or fill in the blank with just wild traumatic experiences. That seems to be a huge factor that is a commonality. And I'm not really sure how to explain it, but I'm right there with you that a lot of times there's a huge traumatic experience that happens with some of these witnesses.
Hmm. Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. Like, it just seems like, and maybe that's something. I mean, not to get too into the way we live these days, but the way we live these days is kind of off the path from what we were probably intended to do. Like, I'm not trying to go down that rabbit hole, but it just seems that we as a society don't really live properly.
Right.
And when these kind of traumatic things happen, they kind of like tear you down to your core in some way. And maybe that kind of, it brings you more in touch with yourself, which might bring us more in touch with who we really are as a species. And maybe that's why some of these things are more interested in us at that time, because we're closer to, I don't know, I got to be careful with my words, I guess, but we're raw.
Yeah.
We're not bogged down in electronics or whatever, like things that take away from our actual natural being, and it really brings us in touch with real life. And trauma can do that. Trauma is real life, so it's raw, and it digs up raw emotion. It creates raw emotion, and maybe that's something they're interested in. Or, and then you start talking about that. There's the whole spiritual warfare thing. I'm not going to act like I know much about it. Makes sense, but it's just like at face value. I don't know too much, but it makes sense, because if there's something that's attracted to negativity in the spiritual warfare sense, then that would kind of fit the bill for that. But yeah, I mean, I'm kind of glad to hear that, because I was wondering if I was kind of seeing something that wasn't there. But
No, I think you're closer than you realize when it comes to that. Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely something there. It'd be interesting to see what other people think in response to that too. So yeah.
yeah, I will say in the past 6 or 7 years, I guess to simplify it, it's been more of a healing time for me. To where I'm kind of getting away from that negativity, that pain, that trauma, etc. And the sleep paralysis stuff has faded. Like, I think it's happened twice in the past 7 years, whereas prior to that, it was at least 2 or 3 times a year. So that would kind of, you know, stay in connection, or however you want to say it, with that theory. So makes sense to me. You want me to move on to the next one?
Yeah, sure.
All right. So hard to put a certain date on it. Probably mid to late aughts, like 2000, between 2006, 2010. Can't really remember exactly. I was living in the same area for about 14 years, so they all kind of run together. I was at an apartment complex where, like I said, I've been living for a while. Um, and here's the crazy part, is the location of it. If you go on to, I guess, Google Maps or Google Earth or whatever you want to do, and you look at this place, it is not wooded at all. It's not rural, not remote. It's on the outskirts. It's like right off of I-95, pretty much, like maybe a mile from 95. It's Delaware, butted right up against the PA border. Literally in that neighborhood, there's a 5-foot stone pillar, and on one side there's a D for Delaware, the other side P for Pennsylvania. I think it was dated 1888. That's pretty cool. But so it's like literally on the border of Delaware and Pennsylvania. So yeah, there's like a small patch of woods in there. I wouldn't say it's probably maybe close to 3/4 the size of a football field, and it sits in between townhomes and apartments. You want me to give you the name of the apartment complex? Or is that
Only what makes you comfortable. So it is up to you.
doesn't bother me. But if anybody did want to look it up to see exactly where it was, that's the only reason I'd say it. So you can get an idea of how not like wooded this place is. Place is right off Carpenter Station Road. I guess I'll just kind of leave it at that. But it's a very, very small patch of woods with a little creek that sits inside of an apartment complex with a lot of people that live in it. It's a very populated area. It's not as populated as the city of Wilmington, but we are on the outskirts of it. And lots of people here in Delaware because all the businesses and junk. But yeah, so I was walking from one court that was kind of up higher, like on a hill. So I was walking down the hill from that court, cutting to the other one. And when you cut through this other court to get down to the court that I lived in, you end up walking on the side of one of the buildings. So on my left is a brick wall that's the end of the apartment building. And on my right is that patch of woods. And it was nighttime. I'm not sure how late. The spotlight was on, so probably after 8 or 9, I guess. And I heard like a kind of like a click or a tick, maybe. Like just kind of a like not something stepping on a branch, not that kind of noise, but kind of like that. And I looked over to my right, and probably about, I'm not good at distances here, but I'll take a wild shot. About 50 yards into the woods, leaning out from behind a tree, and I could see one hand on the tree and like its waist up, leaning out from behind, staring at me, is this, the best I can describe it, is a definitely bipedal, like standing up, human looking, but it's made up of like snow or static, like when the cable's out. I don't know if that happens anymore, so I'm kind of showing my age there, I guess. But yeah, it was all made up of like the snow static, and it kind of gave off not a real intense glow that lit up around it, but you could tell that it was like light, so to speak, like kind of bright, I guess. And I couldn't tell because of how it was made up. I couldn't tell if it had horns or pointy ears or what, but it was just staring at me. And again, I didn't feel fear or like to run or terror or anything like that, but I was definitely, once again, freaked out. And I just kind of, a lot of people say like, oh, I do this or I did this, but all I did was put my head down and keep walking, like just get away from it. I don't know what it is, keep walking. And that's something, again, that kind of got blocked out. And it's not, that wasn't a traumatic thing. It was just watching me. But what was it? And what was it doing there? That's what I want to know. To kind of add to kind of try to describe it, I'm a Lord of the Rings fan. I don't know if you are, but have you ever watched any of those movies?
Oh yeah, no, I love Lord of the Rings stuff, so I'm gonna get whatever you're saying.
Okay. Do you know when? I can't remember if this was in Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit. I think it was in The Hobbit when Gandalf goes to that fortress somewhere, and like they call him the sorcerer or the necromancer. I can't remember. It's Sauron, but he like comes out as like a black cloud almost, but it's in the shape of a human. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Okay, so it looked kind of like that, like from the waist up, but and to now to the Lord of the Rings, you know how the Nazgul, when I sound like a real dork here, I guess, when Frodo puts the ring on and he sees them and they're kind of like white and cloudy.
Oh yeah, I was like, I was guessing that's where we were going, was the Nazgul. Yeah, no, I totally get it.
Yeah, exactly. But the shape was that of the way that they kind of made Sauron's body look, I guess, or the necromancer or whatever
Yeah.
he's called in The Hobbit. So it kind of looked like that from the waist up, but it was made up of like that white kind of cloudiness that the Nazgul were, but static. I know I'm like all over the place here, but um, but yeah, that's kind of the best that I can describe that. And again, like that's creepy in itself. But if you were like out in the woods or something, this is going to sound weird, but it might make more sense because we're out away from people, out in the middle of nowhere. So we might see some weird stuff out here. But this was right in the middle of a neighborhood, a busy neighborhood in a busy area. What's it doing there? So, uh, but yeah, like, so, and I've always wondered, like, you got the connection of the three things by my bed with the sleep paralysis, the three things at the back door. Then you kind of got a little bit of a connection of like kind of the blurry static thing with the thing in the woods, and then like the blurriness and the gray sort of the three things by my bed. So I always like obsess over things and try to figure out the connections. What's what? Are these all the same things? Are they all different? What's going on? What are they? So that would pretty much be the bulk of any happenings with me over time. Can't say there was anything else that really stood out. Um, I'll throw this out there just because to me it doesn't seem like much, but I think I was 15 roughly. I was living in Athens, Ohio at the time, and I was with my buddy's dad was dropping me off, taking me home, and we were going from Albany to Athens, and we're driving down this back road, evening, not dark, but getting there. Um, we drive by, and on the side of the road, walking down the road, is this really big, like not bulky. It was pretty skinny, but it was huge. Like for to me at that age, it was huge. It was a wolf. It looked like a wolf, like a black wolf with kind of greenish yellow eyes. They weren't glowing or anything. And how I was able to see that in passing is like a testament to how noticeable they were. Um, and that, to me, I was just like, wow, I saw this big wolf walking down the side of the road. But then you get older and you start hearing these other things, and it's like, well, wait a minute, what was that? And you look into it, and like, there really are no wolves in southeastern Ohio. So that happened.
So, man, Kevin, when you take your whole story and look at the whole thing, you've been able to see some really unique stuff from a very early age, and it's just kind of followed you the whole way, which is really interesting to think about.
That's what it's always felt like, but I think, and again, in today's day and age, or maybe just in general, we kind of get chided,
Mm-hmm.
kind of teased, or kind of scoffed at if we start thinking that there's some fantastical thing going on. Well, why couldn't there be? But again, that goes to how how cultures are these days, or lack thereof. Um, but yeah, that's what it's always kind of felt like that there's something to it because it's been happening for a long time. And I'm probably leaving stuff out. I'm probably forgetting a lot. Um, but it's just how weird and like, I guess, the timing of things, so to speak. Like these things happen when no one else is looking. And you do at times wonder, like, is there something wrong with me? Like, am I seeing stuff, or am I just, or things like, and then, I grew up in a family that was predominantly Christian, church going, not like hardline or anything, but loyal, or however you want to, faithful, I guess you would say. So even to even mention some of this stuff, mm, probably get some kind of discipline for it, or whatever. Oh, you're not allowed to listen to Metallica anymore. Stuff like
Yeah,
that.
no, I
But
get it. I get it. What
but
denomination were you guys?
um Well, I wasn't. They were, and
Right,
I was
right, right,
forced to
right, right,
go.
right.
But it was just a Church of God.
Okay.
I'm
Okay.
not really sure if that falls under any specific, like Baptist or
Sure.
Methodist or anything like that. Honestly, I couldn't tell you the difference between any of them. But I'm not a disbeliever. I absolutely believe that there is a higher power, or however you want to put it. I absolutely believe that there is a lot more to not just our existence, but creation and existence altogether beyond just our physical, flesh and blood, work to survive thing. Um, and it's sad that we've gotten so far away from that, and that we don't pay attention to it, and that people are uh, made fun of or outcast because they talk about these kinds of things that they experience. Like it's upsetting, but again, that's something that I've gotten used to over the years with just people in general, which might be part of the reason I stay away from most of them.
Did you have like a grandma or grandpa that was really into things that like maybe your parents wouldn't really be like, yeah, don't talk to her or anything like that from a relative or you just seem to be an outlier?
To the best of my knowledge, I'm an outlier.
Okay.
But and unfortunately, anyone that I could have talked to about it is gone.
Mm-hmm.
So there really isn't any way to find out. And anytime and my dad, he worked for the state of West Virginia as an environmental inspector. So he's out all over the place in West Virginia in the woods. And I asked him, but he said he's never seen anything. But he also followed up with, I wasn't looking. Okay.
Okay, so that
Well,
that yeah, 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 yeah. So how did he learn not to look? Like I wonder if something happened where he's like, okay, I'm just not going to look from here on out. You know, I don't know.
right. And I don't want to like speculate
Yeah,
or
yeah, yeah,
push
yeah,
any like
yeah,
ideas here,
yeah.
but he's pretty dismissive about the conversation.
Mm,
And he said he's been through the Bermuda Triangle a few times, and he said he didn't notice anything there. But it's hard to say. We don't have the closest relationship. I we My parents separated when I was 2, so didn't really get a lot of time to do that. He's still alive, so I try. But and that's kind of what he said. He's like, I've never seen anything, but I really wasn't trying to look for it. So okay, but which is crazy because I hear about things in West Virginia in parts that I know for a fact that he's either lived or been in, and it just makes you wonder, like, well, maybe you weren't even thinking about looking, or maybe you were told not to pay attention, or whatever.
yeah.
But and on that, like, and these are things like I don't even mention, but uh, there are numerous times when I was a kid, like out playing in the woods, because I did that a lot. In West Virginia, I mean, there's not much else to do, so you kind of go do whatever. And I'd go walk around in the hills and the woods and walk by myself, and or with friends in different areas. One area was by the Warwood dump, it's called, I guess, where the trash goes. Um, and I can think of several occasions there and up in the hills that we got shouted at or chased, and or we heard like something running through, and you just assume, oh well, that's we're getting yelled at for being on somebody near somebody's property, or they're chasing us out of here, it's one of the older kids messing with us, or it's a deer or this or that. And you don't think about it then, that like you don't even connect it. But then as the years go by and I start like getting into this stuff and realizing it for what it is, I really start to wonder, like, what was that? Was that something, or was that just what I thought it was, like just a deer or somebody messing with us? We never saw anybody, but I can think of several times that we got chased out of places and hollered at. But again, I I'd have to experience it and see like, oh, that was a Sasquatch that just yelled at me, or we just got chased out of here, or paced out, whatever, by a dog man or a Sasquatch. So I could be like, hey, that happened before, but without that experience and that knowledge and seeing it, I can't really connect the two. But I absolutely wonder, um, you know, were these things like, was this related to something, some little thing that happened when I was a kid that I just thought was kind of funny at the time? Oh, we almost got in trouble, but we got out of there. You know what I mean? Like, it could
Yeah.
be anything. It could go either
Yeah.
way. So I don't really want to lean hard into it and be like, hey, I got chased out by a Sasquatch, because that's the kind of stuff that gives the community a bad name.
Mm.
And I'm not really trying to do that. I try to be as honest and realistic about things as possible,
Absolutely. Yeah.
because why not? Like, what do I have, or anybody, what do any of us, that's the big question, is what do any of us have to gain from coming out and saying this stuff? Attention? Why? Like, that seems kind of ridiculous to me, but I'm kind of a goof, so maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, I mean, most people do not have anything to gain, and I mean, uh, you don't have a book coming out, from what I know, right? So
No,
no,
not that I'm aware of.
right, exactly. So yeah, I'm right there along with you. Now I do have a few questions about your Delaware sighting.
Okay.
It's just some interesting things I noticed. So you had like two very interesting, just kind of ways to describe it. One is it looks snowy or staticky, and I was like, man, I've heard that somewhere before, and I was thinking like, have I heard this? I have heard this description. I think it was a gentleman down in South Carolina who was on the show. But it's a thing where it is so rare to hear something like that. And the other interesting thing you said, and I kind of wanted to clarify it too, is so you could almost see that it had horns or pointed ears.
Yeah. Like, because you could make out its head. It was skinny, so to speak. I mean, for what I could tell, but because of its makeup being the static, whatever, all I could see is there were like two raised things on its head that could either be horns or pointy ears. So, and that's all that. And this isn't something that I forget at all what it looks like. It's kind of stuck in my head. Um, so if I could draw, I could easily draw it for you. I can't draw at all. Um, but yeah, I can't, like, again, I can't decide one or the other because I couldn't really see the makeup of it. But all I could tell is that on the left and the right side of its heads, like up top, it had, raised something.
So the weird thing about that is the one time that I've had a witness say anything close to this, it was gentleman. It was a Pennsylvania episode, and he was talking about the Bigfoot creatures that were around the house where he was staying in, and he said that they had horns as well. And the weird thing is that this happened
Whew.
over by not quite the Philadelphia, kind of on the outskirts in I believe it was an area called Drexel Hill, which is less than 20
Yeah,
miles away from Wilmington. And
yeah, I know right where that is.
that kind of thing makes you wonder, dude, you know?
It really does.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what I'm kind of more flabbergasted, word there, about the fact that somebody else has seen something like this. Because again, I've watched a lot of this stuff. You can ask the wife; she gets a little irritated with it because it's all I watch. um, um, and I think I've heard probably thousands or hundreds to maybe 1,000 episodes or content that I've listened to or watched. I think I've heard one or two that came close to it. And so that's kind of it's kind of gratifying in a way, I guess, or I guess something like that. But it's also kind of like, wow, okay, I'm not alone. That's good. That's a start. That's why I'm here. But then, not just to know that somebody else saw something like that, but it was within, let's see, Drexel Hill to where I'm at. Like, I'm not in Wilmington. Wilmington's about 5 to 10 miles, I guess, southwest of me. Drexel Hill is probably 10 to 15. I'm not exactly sure. It gets kind of confusing, all the back roads and such, because I don't like 95. But it's not far. So to know that somebody saw something very similar or the same thing that I did within a, let's just to be safe, we'll give it a 50-mile radius, which is a lot more. That's being very generous. Um, that's something, man. Uh, that actually, in a weird way, makes me feel good, like excited, like, oh, cool, we're getting closer. And that's exactly why I wanted to do this, is
Mm-hmm.
in hopes that, well, in this case, you have that information, but maybe somebody else will hear it and add to it. That's, for lack of a better term, that's awesome. Like, that kind of makes my day. Like, I feel like, like, I'm sorry, man, but there's like, I'm feeling like a little bit of a sense of relief here. Like, whew, cool. I'm not the only one. That's interesting. I did not know that.
It really makes you think. And I got so much flack for putting that episode out. But again, what I do is I provide a platform for people to share what they've experienced. And when you do that and you don't, I'm going to take this, but not this type deal. Like, you just let the people talk, you find patterns. And this is a potential example of finding a pattern in an area. And who knows where it might lead, but um, man, such an interesting. You're not having sleep paralysis anymore, right, Kevin?
No, I don't think. I think it's been like 2 or 3 years since the last time I've had it, and before that, maybe about a year prior to that one. And then, like I said, within like the past, I don't know, 5 to 6, I think 6 years. Well, since my daughter's 7, so since she's been born, I think I've only had it like 2 or 3 times. That's not true. I've had it about 5 times, but the first three were within the first year of her being born. So within the past 6 years, I've had it about twice. Um, yeah, so and that's, yeah, it just hasn't been happening as much anymore. And again, I don't know. I have no clue. But with the information that I have, what I can like kind of derive from that is that the common thing there is that I've been doing better mentally and emotionally, kind of separating myself from the negativity, and therapy, it's a wonderful thing. It is. And honestly, that's what this has turned into, because I'll be honest with you, man, I can't thank you enough. I know it sounds silly, maybe because it wasn't like an intense, life threatening encounter, but just hearing you say, again, not only that somebody else saw this, but it was very close to here, I almost teared up a little bit, the relief that came from that. Like the whew, like, okay, cool. That's good. But yeah, I'm pretty thankful for that, man. Like the therapeutic aspect of what you're doing, and how you mentioned how you're doing it. You're not singling anything out. You're not pushing anyone to the side because it doesn't meet a certain narrative or certain, uh, you know, aspect of the things you want to talk about. You're just letting people talk about what they've seen or what's happened to them. And you're right, man. Like it's the long game. Like, a lot of people want to go for the short term and just get like the big shows and the big episodes with the big encounters and the big audience, well, that dies off. That's not lasting. There's no staying power in that. But when you have something as powerful as the truth, and it's developed into patterns, especially over time, that is where, that's the real deal, as they would say. Like, that's where you really sink your teeth into something and start putting stuff together. And patience. I mean, you can't put a price on patience. Like, so thank you for what you're doing, man. I really appreciate this. I always have. Everybody I mentioned who I watch and listen to, I always have appreciated it. But for you specifically, solely based off of what you said about somebody else seeing it close by here, I got to thank you for that, because that makes me feel a sense of relief.
That's great to hear, Kevin, and thank you so much. I mean, that's probably the best way anyone has ever conveyed what you just conveyed, and it helps me a lot as well. But man, it has been just such a great conversation with you, and it sounds like you have things under control now. But if you ever, if things do ever happen in the future, feel free to reach out at a later time. Yeah, but yeah, what a story that you have going through the years, and I'm glad you're in the place that you are now. Sounds like you have a good handle on things.
I appreciate that, man. Thank you very much. And yeah, actually, we don't do much, but we try to take our daughter camping when we can. So who knows? Anything else comes my way, I will absolutely let you know, brother.
Just wanted to say thank you, seriously, to all of you listening to the Bigfoot Society podcast. And if you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button and tap the bell so you never miss an episode. And if Kevin's story gave you chills or made you rethink what's possible in a quiet West Virginia neighborhood or a Delaware woodlot, please share this episode with a friend. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, make sure you're following the show and drop a quick review. It helps way more than you might think. And listen, if you or someone you know has had a Bigfoot encounter, especially around Wheeling, Warwood, Athens, Albany, Wilmington, or near the Delaware-Pennsylvania border, shoot me an email at bigfootsociety@gmail.com. I'd love to hear your account. And hey, big thanks again to Kevin for his courage, his honesty, and letting us into a story that's more than just sightings. It's about healing as well. So until next time, stay curious and stay safe. Remember, just because you didn't see it doesn't mean that it wasn't there.